Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and I was thinking, again, a while back I created a video where I created an Express Mongo to-dos API and deployed it, and then I made a video where I built a front end for that in React, and I did one in plain vanilla JavaScript. So I was thinking, why not just do all the other frameworks while you're at it? So this one I'm going to be doing Angular, but I will be making videos for Vue, for Svelte, for Solid.js. I might even do one for like Riot.js and Stencil.js. Just kind of keep going through all the different frameworks and just building the full CRUD front end for that. And again, the way I'm going to build is not necessarily optimal because I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. So basically, I'm going to use the tools of that framework to the best of my ability. So not to the best of my ability, because again, if I spent more time, I could probably figure out to do better. But the idea is like I'm doing it off the top of my head to build the functionality desired within the quickest amount of time. That's the deal here. So if you think there's a better way to do any of the parts I did, do put them in the comments. Okay, so that way people can learn best practices. Basically the frameworks I spend most of my time in are going to be like React and Svelte, because I actually have like projects that I do in those. Professional projects that I do in those frameworks. Not necessarily as much in Angular or Vue or Solid.js or Stencil or Riot, where I don't spend as much time in professionally. So here we go. I'm going to create a new Angular project. So for that, I have the Angular CLI installed. If not, you can head over to angular.io. That's the website with Angular's documentation, and you can see how you download the CLI. So I'm going to say ng new. So I'm creating a new project. Okay. And it should take a second. There we go. Let's call this Angular to-dos. Would you enforce stricter type checking and stricter bundle budgets in this workspace? The setting helps improve maintainability, catch bugs ahead of time. Not right now. If this were like a bigger project, I would do that and make it nice and strict. Would you like to add Angular routing? Sure. Okay, let's just stick to strict CSS. I'm not going to really do much in the way of styling. We're just going to try to build that to-do list functionality. And on that note, I should probably start the server. So let me go find that Express server here. Open that in a new terminal. Open in integrated terminal. Okay, npm run, npm start actually. Okay, so we got that running. And this is building out in the other terminal. Let's see how that's doing. Okay, but essentially, and let's run this, which should be well, let me actually go into that folder. So cd angular to-dos. And if you hear a faint chirping in the background, that is my cocktail. So even though I have moved to Florida and you shouldn't really be hearing the cocktail in most videos. Right now I'm alone in the house and the cocktail's feeling a little lonely, so I left the door open. So you might be able to hear it a little bit more than in the last few videos. Because, it's my baby. Okay. But, here we go. So I'm in the folder, so I do ng-serve. That is the command that's going to run the Angular server. Yeah, take my data, why not? Cool. Oh, I guess it turned it off, whatever. So it's just setting everything up, so we can just see like sort of like the base template. Eventually it'll kickstart it. Compiled successfully, and it should be running on what port? I always forget. Running on 4200, localhost 4200. That's the one. Okay. So localhost 4200. Let's move that over to the side. Okay, let's move this over here. Okay, so let's go into the source. So basically with Angular, again, just like all the other ones, all the work's done in the source. And then all your components are in here. And once again, your sort of main component is app. I'm going to go in there and bang out everything in app. I'm going to be a little bit more careful because basically the way a component structured in Angular is that instead of just one file, it's broken up over a TypeScript file with all like your JavaScript, your well, that's the module. So the component file with a class that is sort of where you house your state and methods and all that stuff. You have your this is the test file. You have this HTML file, or this is actually a CSS file. or no, that is the HTML file. Oh, and I'm going to pretty much get rid of everything in this file except the very last line. I want the router outlet because that's where like the routes will show up. Okay, and then you have a CSS file. Again, I won't really be using that much. Okay, now there's these two other files, app.module. This is where like Angular gets a little bit more complicated because basically it does everything in modules to kind of optimize your bundle. So you have to kind of like connect and wire all like the components and services through these modules. And this allows it to know like sort of which components should sort of be loaded up ahead of time, which ones shouldn't, what services should be loaded, as different things become present on the website. So it allows you to kind of optimize and lazy load things, but it does come with a little extra level of complexity for simple projects. Okay, but yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do an H1 for like Alex's to-do list. H1, Alex's to-do list. Okay. And essentially what happens here is that the router outlet is going to be where the components load up. So I'm going to create two components, form and display, where we display our to-dos. Okay, so for that, I am going to shut down the server for a moment. So it should be like ng generate component, and we'll have one component that is form. So we're getting a form component, and another one ng generate a component, and that one's going to be the display component. Okay, and then also the one nice thing about Angular that I like quite a bit is this service structure. So instead of having me like house all this state, I don't have to worry about passing it around as props and figuring out how it's going to get from point A to point B. I can house all my state in what's called a service. So I don't have to worry about passing the data between the components. I could. There's props. There's ways of doing all that stuff. There's emitting events. But I could just house everything in a service and just load the services that component needs in that component. So in this case, I'm going to create a ng generate a service called to do. Okay? That's going to basically be how we manage all our to-do data. So, who's going to make the API call for the to-dos? It's going to be inside the to-do service. Where all the methods for like updating and deleting and all that stuff in to-dos, that's all going to be inside the to-do service. So I'm not going to have to stress out too much about that. Okay, and we'll come back to that because I will have to look up some things because a couple things I do need to, since we are going to be using a form, which means I'm going to need the Angular form module. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Okay, app.module. Okay, so see, here's where you connect different modules, and like Angular has different modules for different features. So that way, if there's feature sets that you don't need, you don't load them, they're not part of your bundle. Because Angular is a huge framework with lots of features. You rarely ever have to like install third-party libraries because everything's there. But I'm going to want so these are my components, and there's the routing module. I want to import. Here's the way I usually do it. I'm going to import, and I'm going to keep that blank for now, from Angular, or at Angular. And then right here I should see forms. There we go. So now that I have that, I think it's like, there we go, forms module. Okay, thank you, VS Code, for all your autocomplete goodness. So as you can see, like this module, and right now there's generally, like for most projects, you're just gonna have this one module. So basically what this module is saying is that, hey, in this module, and there's always like this one sort of main module, I'm declaring these components, that these components can all refer to each other in this module. These features are now going to be accessible by these components, so I have to add in the forms module. Okay, so now that feature is now available to those components. And then eventually I'm going to be like cooking up, eventually I may or may not need to hook up, like if I just want to make the service just sort of naturally provided to all of them, I could put it in that array. And then this only shows up in sort of the main module, because you only need to bootstrap. That's the thing that bootstraps the app component to the DOM in the same way like React DOM.render renders the app component to the DOM. So if you were to create other modules because you want to kind of block off chunks of your project logically, and just say, hey, these couple components are when you're like on this page and different things, you won't necessarily need this bootstrap property on those modules. Okay, although again, 90% of the time, you just need one module. Okay, so there we go. So and then things that when I use that ng generate command, it automatically, you notice how like it automatically wired my components in here. So the form and display component, I didn't have to put that in there. It did it for me. That's nice. Okay, so all that's set up, and if I go here, see there's a folder for my display component and my form component. Okay, all well and good. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to try to set up this service. Okay, and one thing I think I'm going to want, and I think it might be in core, so injectable is on in it in there. Yeah, on in it. Okay, so what this is going to allow me to do is just kind of define something that happens when the component loads. I could kind of put it in the constructor, but if I want to do an API call, I'm going to want to do it there. So basically, you implement this. So implements on init. Okay, it doesn't like that. Properly in type to do service, but required in type on init. So yeah, it's going to complain if I create that function. Okay, and I might have to go look that up, but we'll do it in a second. Okay, and then I need to import the service. Import from /. Isn't it the same folder? No, I think it's in the above folder. Nope, that wasn't the right folder. / to do service. But where is the to do? Oh no, this is the to do service. I don't need to do this here. I'll do this later in one of the components. Okay, implements on init. So what I'm going to do here in the constructor, do I really need to do anything in the constructor? So far, not yet. So we'll just leave that empty for now. But I want to declare a few properties. I want to declare like URL. I'm going to make that equal HTTP / localhost 10,000 because again the server's running on 10,000. Okay, and what I want to do is, let's go look up how this on init thing works. ng on init angular. Read the docs. Interface on init. Show me the example. Implements on init. Yep, that's what I thought. I just have to write this function. Okay. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a method called getToDos. Okay, we'll make it async. And this method will do what you think it's going to do. It's going to just make a property to hold those to-dos. To-dos equals an empty array. Okay, so it's going to do const response equals, oh wait, fetch. I could use the HTTP library that's or module that's built into Angular that uses observables, but I always just find that like harder to wrap my head around than just using fetch, especially for like quick things like this. But that's a thing. Okay, so fetch, we're going to use this.url as the URL, and again that should be actually / localhost 10,000 / to-dos. So let's do it that way. Const data equals await response.json. Okay, and again, if you're not familiar with what I'm doing with the fetch function, watch my videos on like fetch and Axios before going further. And then I got the data, and then I just say this.todos equals the data. Okay, wonderful. Okay, it's still complaining because I haven't implemented ng on init yet, but I'll do that now. ng on init, now it's happy. And basically, again, this is just kind of like using useEffect in a React functional component, or onMount in Svelte, or before on Vue. Essentially just says, do this when the component loads. So so what I wanted to do is I wanted to run getToDo. That's it. This I get to do. Good. Okay, so that does what I needed to do so far, at least for display. Okay, because what we're doing first. We're going to try to get this whole display deal to work. Let me just see what I see here. See, right now we just see Alex's to-do list. And on another note, we should probably hook that up to the routing module. Okay. Imports, exports, routes. I always forget how you write the routes. Routing module. Routing routes. Let's see here. Okay, how do you create a route object? There we go. There's the definition. So a route needs a path. This is a string. And then where does it get to? Send to path matcher URL type component type any. Okay, that I think is the minimum that I need. So I think that's all I need. So basically what happens is that all your routes go in this array here. So then in this object we will put a path. And we're just going to say a slash. And the component, I have to load the components. So we're going to import import, what's the word I'm looking for? Display. There we go. The display component. And then import form component. There we go. Because I'm going to need those eventually. Form we'll come back to. And then component should be display component. Okay, so now when we're on the main page, I should see display component, which means I should see some text now. No. Let me open up my DevTools just in case there's any output there that's useful. I think this augury thing is going to be the Angular DevTools, so router outlet, app component. They're not the best dev tools, but that's what we got. Router outlet. Okay. So let's see here. Why? Oh, because the server's not running at the moment. That's fine. Let's fix that. ngserve. ngserve. Let it do its thing. Because technically what's going to happen is that we're on the main page, which is that slash route, which means we should see just like the default text from the display component, which should just be like display component. Let me just check. Yeah, right here, display works. So we should see that in a second when this is done. So I refresh, and it's not happy. Route cannot start with a slash. Ah, okay, so then this is supposed to just be empty. There we go. Okay, so you don't put the slash in for Angular. Okay, not bad. Fine. So now we can go to the display component and start working on that. So first thing I need to do is I am going to want, and so they automatically put on init. I don't need necessarily on init for this particular component. What I do need is to import to-do service. Okay, so to-do service is imported. Okay, and what I have to do is in the constructor, I have to say there's going to be an argument called to-do, we'll just call it to-do service. And it is of type to-do service. And then what we can do is we can say this dot to do service, or we're gonna, yeah, this dot to do service equals to do service. This is what's called dependency injection. So essentially what's happening, it's complaining because it wants me to declare this thing to do service. Okay. So now let's see here. If I go over to the DevTools, app component. Let's see if I refresh this. Let's give me more detail now. Nope, just get stuck in the router outlet. That's exciting. Okay. Not quite as good as the React DevTools, but there might be a newer, better thing that I just don't have in my browser. Okay, but basically this is now a property. This is now available to this component. So I basically have this to-do service in here, which is just the class that I defined in to-do service. So technically to-do service.todos has the array of to-dos. So theoretically, I should be able to go to the HTML now of to-do service and actually like start iterating to-dos. So I'll make a UL, and I should be able to do an LI that has a ng4, which equals, and then this part I always forget, ng4. Because it's very particular about how it's set up. ng4, everything in Angular is pretty particular. So ng4 of, I just want to see an example. Here we go. ng4, here we go. Let item of items, you don't need that last part, you just need this part. Okay. So technically it would be for let to do of to do service dot to do's, and let's leave it at that for now. And let's see here, if we do a div in each one, we don't need, I think we don't need a div, h1, that is to do dot, and actually here in Angular it's double curly brackets. So to do dot reminder. Okay, let's see if we see that. I don't see that. Okay, so that's telling me we're not getting what we think we're getting. So let's see here. Is this thing even running? Console.log to do service. Let's just make sure we're actually getting the service. Console. Yep, so we are getting the service. But the array is currently empty. Why is that? ng on init this dot get to do. That not run? Let's just see if this ng on init's even running. Console.log on init. Yeah, no, that on init doesn't run. So maybe that's not where I want to do that. Cool. In that case, okay, yep, I don't need to implement on init then. Just get off my back, TypeScript. Okay, so let's go back to display component. So in that case, what I'll do is ng on init here. Then here I can do like to do service dot get to do. And does it get to do? Yeah, I did right. No, I should have wrote get to do's, but fine, I'll let it. Okay, so see now it's populating. Good. Okay. So essentially the way it works, the constructor runs first, and then after the constructor, the ng on init runs, and then again, this gets generated, and because I typed one of the arguments to the constructor as the type of the service, Angular generates like one copy of the service on load and passes it in. Like if other components are going to use that same service, it'll get passed the same instance. So that way I'm not creating multiple copies of to-do service every time I use it. It's a bit of a weird way of doing things. Like it's probably not like, if you're coming from React or Vue, this seems probably a bit more complicated. But the beauty of it is you're not really worrying about like how the data gets from point A to point B. If it's in that to-do service, I have access to it wherever. Really nice. You just got to make sure you get it all set up first. But once it's all set up, it's all easy peasy. Okay. So let me go back to the display component HTML. Then we'll say we'll have an H2. That is, you know, whether the to-do is completed or not. to do dot completed. Okay, so we can see that. Yeah, so I guess that's fine for now. Cool. So now the next step is to make it where we can what's the word I'm looking for? Edit or create the to-do. That's going to be all be based on the form. Okay. So let's create a button that's called like just remember actually how do you make a link in Angular? Okay, because it's not the same as the other frameworks. Link. Router link. There we go. So I think it's just like a tag called router. There we go. A router link. There. That's how you do it. Query params, and we'll use the query params. Education. Cool, 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 cool. Now, how can I receive? For navigation, to retrieve the saved navigation state value. Okay, we'll come back to that. But bottom line, this is how you would create the link. So I'll just kind of copy that real quick. Okay, so I want a link here. We're going to say router link to /create. Okay, and we're going to just say action create. Okay, so that's essentially like some data I'm passing in via query params. And then what I don't care about this fragment, so I'll take the fragment out. And I'm just going to say, make this a button that says create to do. And let's see if it likes that. Okay, good. We can get rid of that display works now. I don't think that's really serving us a purpose anymore. Okay. Oh, it's I got this in the wrong place. Control X. That should be here. There we go. Good, 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 good. So now I can create to do. Now we just need to make sure that we have our routes set up for the two. So I'm going to create 2 more routes. Okay. And what I'm going to do is this is going to be /create and this is going to be /edit. They both go to the same form. Okay, just going to have a slight. Oh, what doesn't it like? Oh, again, you don't need the slashes because there we go. So now if I click on this, it should just take me to the form component. So I should just see the page change and say, you know, form works. Okay, detect it. Did it even change the page? Nope, doesn't seem like the link is working. Okay, see here, router link. Let's go back and read the router link documentation. See again, Angular does not make anything friendly or intuitive. Router link. Or the router module. The router module is loaded. Okay. Angular 11 router link. Just gonna see an example. Here we go. Okay, this I like this better. Router link. Okay. Thing of redirects. Routes. Specifying about using query parameters and fragments. Just the query parameters is fine enough for me. Come back to that. want to see. That's fine. I'll just do this. Let's get rid of these. And get rid of these. Not sure if I still want that, but common writing tasks. Go back to that example, a router link. Okay, and that all looks good to me. So now if I click on this, still doesn't do what I want it to do. Let's go back here, a router link. Oh, because the button isn't in the A tag. Alex. There we go. So let's try that out now. Oh, cannot match any routes. Cannot match any routes URL segment / create. So do I not have a / create in my routes? App routing modules, create. Yes. Okay, I guess it just wants the word. Probably doesn't want a / either. That's going to be my assumption. But let me find. Here we go. Display component. Oh, here it is. So let's see what happens if I do this. I take that out. And now if I click on this, cannot match any routes. URL segment create. Oh, actually, I still have this like whole array here. I think that's the problem. Should just be create. Let's try that out now. Well, I'm not sure why the query, but okay. Didn't switch pages though. I am still seeing that component. Yeah, that's all fine. Go back to the example. A router link / first component. Okay, in this case it does have a /, so maybe let me just go back and add the /. Maybe it's because maybe it's the query that messed it up. Let's take the query out. Okay. You know what? I'm thinking I don't think I changed the components when I did the copy and paste. That is correct. Oh, pie on my face. See, Angular has a lot of things you gotta change for every like little piece. So again, once it's all set up, theoretically the code's more maintainable because everything's got a structure, but the initial ramp up can be quite time consuming. Okay, I would have been much further along than pretty much any other framework at this point. Cool. That's all fine with me. Okay, let's go back to the form component. Let's go over to the form component. Now what I'd like to do is be able to get the data from the route. So I know there's like a thing we have to bring in. I think we see it in here. Router order, get route information. Here we go. Import activated route and param wrap. Okay. In the component class, private route equals activated route. This route, I don't need the query params per se. Although we could add those back on. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. So first, let's just go to the form component, to the TypeScript part. And what we want to do is import activated route. And we'd like to import query or param. Is that where I'm getting it from? Param map. Yeah, this would be something called param map. Okay, and router. So we'll import those things. Param map or param map, and then router. So import those things. And import statements, add several imports, more blah, blah, blah. Check instance of, so in the constructor, we need to do more. So we're gonna sit there and say router or route equals activated route. Okay, so that way we get an instance of that. And we're gonna just say route this dot route equals route. And I also gonna want to console log that route. See what properties I have available to me. This dot route, and then again I gotta create the property over here. This dot route, and I'll type it to be an activated route. Oh, you don't need the this here. Okay, let me save that so it cleans it up a little bit. There we go. So let's go back to the app console to do service. Well, that's from the to do service. I should probably get eliminate that. Well, let's go to create to do. Okay, so there's the activated route. All I really care about is can I get the word create from it. Params. I don't really care about that. Is thrown. Is the word create anywhere in your component class? Data. Value. None of that's particularly useful yet. URL. How about here? URL segment. Okay, like down here. So I mean, I could go get that, but that seems excessive. I guess we'll have to just get it from there. So that's basically going to be this dot route dot URL dot underscore value. That's 0. Create. That should do the trick. There's probably a faster way to get that information. Seeing if there is anything that kind of jumps up at me. I don't know the methods. So yeah, this is probably going to be my best option at the moment. Okay. So we're going to do create a property for action, which I want it to be a string. So fine. Okay, and we'll do this dot action equals route dot URL so far, which is going to complain about console.log this dot action. Just to make sure we're getting the right thing. It should be this dot action dot underscore value. I think it's like 0 dot path. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the typing for a moment. I'm going to just say any for a second. So that way just lets anything through. Okay, let's just start with route.url. Let's go to the console log, behavior subject. Okay, now in here we want to go to the value property. Okay, so dot value. Error, property value does not exist on type observable URL segment. Okay. Boo. Because it has observers. Wonderful. Okay, back to the documentation. Setting up welcome routes, setting up redirects, nesting routes, using relative paths. Not dealing with any of that right now. I just want to get the path. Get URL path in Angular. Okay, using route.url. So let's see here, template, export, where's the constructor, router? Okay, so maybe the router is a better place to do this. Okay, so let's try that. We did import router, so let's just do it. So let's also create, let's do another, inject a router. So router. Okay, router. And let's just create another property, router, which is of type router. Okay. And then we'll just say like this dot router equals router. Okay, and then let's just check, see what that gives us. Okay. And we're gonna say like this dot route dot router dot URL. See what we're getting. Okay. Yes, that's what I like. Okay. Good, good, good. And then that's like the router. I mean, if I can just get the word create, that's even better, but /create works fine for me. I can work with that. And the reason why I care so much about getting this path is I want to use one form to edit and create instead of creating like two separate forms. So I'm just looking for a mechanism of least resistance to, okay, here we have config. Well, those are the different routes, so that's not going to be what I want. Okay. But the current URL is fine. Let's see if there's anything else on there. Your handling strategy .url. Okay, I don't see the URL is a property. Oh, there it is. This is /create. Okay, that's fine. That's perfect. Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. So that's fine and good. And I'm also going to want to bring in the to-do service. So I'm going to import that. Import the to-do service. And let's just inject that while we're at it. And let's just get rid of these console logs. I don't really need that route injection anymore, but that's fine. Okay, and then we're going to also inject to-do service, which is a to-do service. As you can see, this just becomes kind of repetitive, but the idea is that it's thorough. To-do service, this dot to-do service equals to-do service. Okay. It's this way I'm going to have everything that's in that to-do service, because that to-do service is where I'm going to put all the functions like add, edit, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to want that available. Cool. So I have what I need. So what I need now is, let's just actually just start sketching out the form. But I'm going to want some properties to hold the form values, which are going to be basically reminder. Okay, reminder, which should be a string, because that's going to represent, you know, what the new to do is, or the current to do is, and and reminder, and then also checked is going to be a Boolean, and these are going to start as reminder string. What this is going to do is that this is going to start as an empty string, and this is going to always start as false. Okay, easy peasy. Okay. So now what I can do is head over to the form, the HTML for the form component, and really all this is going to be is just basically a form. And in that form, there is an input of type equals text, and an input of type equals checkbox, and then the submit button, input of type equals submit. Fun. Okay, so I got that all sketched out, but what I need to do is bind these values to the class. Okay, and if I remember right, let's just see, it's like maybe like ng model. So ng model But also what I can just do, if I remember correctly, I should just be able to do value equals, and then it's just like this parentheses, this parentheses, then the name of the variable, which is reminder. Let me just see if that's already complaining. No, nope, no complaints. It's cool with that. Oh, wait a second. Nope, nope, I'm doing that wrong. I just remembered. That has to be around here. So it's like that. So I'm saying like that's like, I always forget, like it's like, I think it's like the parentheses means that we can send a signal to the class, and then the square brackets means the class can send a signal to here. So it's like two-way binding. Reminder. Okay, and then the checkbox is going to be the check property. So checked equals completed. Okay. Let's say property completed does not exist on type form component. Let's check. What did I call it? Oh, I called it checked. So it should be completed because it's what matches the schema on the API. If you watch the video where I made the Express API. Okay. So now that matches. So let's just double check here. Let's go to here, the DevTools display component. Okay. Properties. Okay, so here I can see like completed and false. So if I check this, it should turn to true. If I type in here, does it change what's in here? Refresh. Error, assertion error, component, no, actual. Yeah, I really not a fan of these dev tools. Almost all the other ones work just fine. Okay, I'm gonna assume, so let's test that out in a different way. Let's create our handle submit function for when you submit the form. Okay, and I know there's a special way of doing like the prevent default thing. So prevent default, okay, fine. Form. Angular form module. Okay, so let's just scroll through this real quick. Checkbox required validator. Those are just validators to like validate things, not what I care about right now. Class forms module. Okay, let's see here. Angular tools, developer guides, forms. Here we go. Introduction. Okay, so we. Not what I'm looking for yet. Just looking for some sample HTML. But of course, you do not want to show me that. Because as usual, Google's documentation wants to be complicated and terse. Sigh. Okay, let's take a look here. Template, input, type, text, ng model. Okay, we got that. ng model, favorite input type, ng model, favorite color. And that's all fine and good. I think that's kind of what I need to do here. So let's do that. Form component. And let's just do ng model. Okay, let's refresh. Okay. Let's go to the properties of the, let's go to the form. And then if I go here, and let's just see if I type in now that I've done the ng model, does that update? No. And how about if I check the checkbox? No. Okay. That's fine. I think it's working, but One way I can test it is by adding a click event. But just want to see how they do the handle submit example of that, but they don't want to show me that, so I'll just figure it out. Okay, so in that case, basically the way it works is I'd write a method over here on the form component. So we'll just do handle submit, okay, which should receive the event. And we're just going to console.log the event. Let's just do event.prevent default. And it's console.log. What do I want to console log? This.reminder and this.checked or check completed. Okay, just want to make sure that those are actually like changing values. Okay, and actually one more thing, I have to actually connect it to the button. So back to the forms HTML. The way it should work, if I remember correctly, I just put parentheses, click, and then when it is clicked, it should just be handle. Oh wait, no. Here, submit equals handle submit. I always forget if I have to put the parentheses or not. We'll find that in a moment. Okay, so I'll do that. First, let's just see if this actually like console logs the thing. Model options. Okay, so what it's asking me to do is set the name of the form. So name equals form. Okay. Use within a form tag, use attribute. Oh, it's asking me to do this. Name the name attribute on the inputs. Name reminder. Name completed. Okay. Okay, type in the form. Nope. Okay, let's see here. Boo! Forms in Angular. Forms in like the old school Angular were actually pretty easy. I get it, validations, and you know, there's times where like when you have huge forms, some of these things can be of quite a benefit. But okay, let's just see here. On submit event Angular. ng form, using forms for user input, difference between Angular submit and ng submit events. So let's just see here. Ng submit ensures that the form doesn't submit when the handler code throws and causes an actual issue. So you submit throws an error. Is the default submit form submit event. It will call underlying method when we get submitted. ng submit is host binding situated on form element. Basically, it prevent default. So that's kind of what I want. Especially, you can prevent additional post back calls component. Triggers a post call to the browser URL. Blah blah blah. Click event, then it never posts the data. So ng submit equals save employee form. It's post. Okay, so I do need the parentheses. So this should be actually ng submit. Let's do that, and then this should be have parentheses. Okay. What is it like? Expected 1 arguments, but I got 0. Oh, because it's expecting the event. Let's see what happens if I just change this back to submit. Expected 1 argument and a submit. So it is triggering right away. Okay, let's see if we can find some more documentation, because again, you know, why make things simple? Form submit, ng submit. Here we go. Oh, yes, basically what I was just doing. Ng submit on submit, and then let's just see in the class. learning objectives. Okay. So if we do ng submit, and then I go back here and I pull out the event. So no more event. Okay, let's see here. So I'm happy now. I type this in. Still not quite where I want it to be. Let's go back to the HTML. Let me add the parentheses now. Okay. So now, okay, so it's working. Good. Cool. Okay, so that's how we want to do it. So again, ng submit, that binds the event and automatically passes prevent default. And you do need the parentheses in this situation to pass that in, and it doesn't receive the event apparently. Cool. That's fine enough. I don't need the event. Okay. So we have handle submit, and it's getting the right information. So what I need to do now, okay, what I need to do now is create the functions over there in the display service to do all these other types of calls. Okay, so we have get to do in the display service. That's not the display service, the to do service. And in the to do service now I just need to add all these methods for like creating a to do. So you know, create to do. Okay. And essentially it's going to await fetch this dot URL, and we're going to get the new to do passed in. Okay. Await fetch this dot URL, and then essentially what it's going to do, second argument with all the details, await method, this is supposed to be a post request, and then headers should include content type, application JSON, and then method headers application JSON, body JSON.stringify, the new to do. Okay, so that kind of has what I want. What's it complaining about? Oh, I need a comma. Simple things. Okay, so there's like basically that should make the post and create the thing, and then it should run this dot get to do again to update the to dos. This dot get to do. Okay, and that's it. Like that should do that. Okay, and yeah, that works for me. Might as well just make the other methods while I'm here. Update to do should almost be the same. Okay, except it'll be this URL plus the ID. So, well, plus slash this dot new to do dot underscore ID. So we want the ID at the end of the URL, and it's going to be a put request. And then instead of a new to do, it'll be a updated to do. Updated to do. And then I'll run get to do again. That works for me. And then I want a delete to do. Okay. There we go. This should say delete to do. Deleted to do, deleted to do, deleted to do. Good. And then this is delete, a delete request to the server. And we don't really need any of this. Okay, so those are all the methods I need from the service. So that's good. Okay. So now I go back to the form. Source, so many files. Okay, form. Okay. Now once we handle submit, essentially what should happen is that if this dot action equals /create, then what we're going to do is say this dot to do service dot create to do. And actually, either way, we're going to first take the to do. Okay, this this dot to do. Let me think about this. The const say to do equals reminder, this dot reminder, and completed, this dot completed. The values on the form. Okay, that'll sort of be the start. So this dot to do service, pass it the to do, then clear out the form. This dot reminder is once again empty, and this dot completed equals again false. And then actually I want to push them back to the main page, which I think I can do with router. Okay, so router, okay, Angular router, push to other page. Okay, this dot route dot navigate. There we go. Okay, component private router. Okay, so we do have router. So it would be router.navigate. Okay, so then it would be like this dot router dot navigate back to slash. Or just back to empty. Yeah, it needs an array. I see. Okay. Cool. Now, if it is going to be, now what's the other route? So let's go back to the routing module. Edit. So if it's /edit form. So I'll just copy the same if statement. So if it's /edit, then same deal, except we're going to use update to do. We'll figure out the ID situation in a second. But same idea. So basically this should take me to the form. Then when I hit submit, it creates the to-do, does the post, pushes me back to the main page. I think the creation should be working now. So let's see here. Let's go back to the main page, just walk through the process. The display component shows up. I say create to do. We'll say eLinner. Leave it false, submit. Yeah, that works. eLinner. Okay, good. Because basically what's happening is that it's passing it's basically taking the data from the form, passing it to create to do, and that's all fine and good. Now we just need to figure out how we're going to make this thing editable. Okay, so that means when we click on a particular to do, we need to make it where like that to do's data gets passed in. Okay, so essentially, let's think about this. We're going to want to use A tags. Okay, so let's go back to the display. And we're going to use more of these router link tags. And what's going to happen is we're going to say that the H1 is a link, Control X. So those become links. Okay, and they're going to take you to /edit, but we're going to pass some data via the query params. Okay, so query params equals, let me just go back and Google Angular query params equals, okay, so theoretically query params equals I just want to actually just see if I can pass the to-do in there. Let's just give that a shot. Okay. And let's see, how can I access the query params? Where's the given query params? Blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Get Angular router query params. I just need to see the code. Okay, here we go. So this dot query route get query param map get. Okay, so let's see. This shows an example. Pepperoni. Let's see what the route looks like first. We'll go from there. Go back to display component. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, let's actually just click on, see what happens if I click on brush your teeth. Okay, I get edit 0 equals, and I get all that gibberish. Not exactly what I want. I could do this the fun long way. Okay. Just let me do it just right here. Let's give this a shot. So if I say ID equals to do dot ID underscore ID, would that get injected into the URL? Let's just see. Let's find out. Nope. Nope. That's gotta be the segment. A router link display component. Well, okay, I guess here's what I'm going to do. So let's go back to the display component. I'm not going to do it that way. Okay, let's go back to the display component. And what I'm going to want is the router. So import router. Okay, and then we have to do the whole setup for router. So a router, which is going to be a router. And then we got to inject the router in here. So router, and do like, let's get rid of this console log. This dot router equals router. Okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to say like select to do. So ng, no, we'll just call it select to do. And what it's going to take in is taking a to do. And what it's going to do is like in this, let me go back to the to do service because we want to make a property for this. We're going to put a property called selected to do, which can be anything. Okay. Back to display. And what this is going to do is going to say this dot to do service dot selected to do equals the to do that is selected, and then it says this dot router dot navigate, and then it's going to navigate them to /edit. Okay, save. And then what we're going to do is then connect that as a click event. So click equals, and it's going to equal select, what did I call it? Select to do, and passing in the to do in question. Okay, so let's see what happens. Takes me to the edit page. Good. Okay, so now what happens is that technically, if everything worked the way I think it worked, that to do got passed into that function, so now that's been stored in the service, and again, both components are connected to the service. So I should be able to go back here to form and set up my final bit of logic. Okay, and the form here. Okay. So then here in the constructor, what I want to do is saying, hey, if this dot router dot, or actually if this dot action, actually I can probably fit this all in one line. Now, if this dot action equals /edit, then what should happen is that this dot reminder should equal this dot to do service dot selected to do dot reminder. Okay. This dot completed equals this dot to do service dot selected to do dot completed, and then we're going to say this dot id, which we're going to have to create a property for that. This dot id will equal this, and you guys get the idea. So essentially I passed in, I saved the object that was selected inside, which would be any, play with that. Okay, cool. So theoretically that should, now if I click on this, if it all worked, I should be able to see the information for the existing, the thing I should see brush your teeth in the form. And I do. Perfect. Okay, let me go back. And yes, so that works perfectly. Nice. So you see I'm using the service as a way to pass data back and forth, because there isn't this unidirectional flow that's in React. So I can sit there and say, okay, I know that both of these components are both connected to this service. So if one component sets the data in the service, then the other one should have access to it. Cool. And now I just have to do this edit piece. And essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to say like this, or to do dot underscore ID will equal this dot ID. Okay, and why does not like that? Const to do underscore ID on type. Okay, fine. Want me to do this? Okay, good. Update to do reminder. Okay. And then what I need to do is make that the data on the form conditional. Form. Where is the form HTML? This is the form HTML. So let's take a look at the create to do. Oh, yeah, it just says submit. Okay, that's fine. So now if I click here to eat lunch, so I can say, hey, eat lunch has been completed. I hit submit, and each lunch is now true. Okay, cool. Now all I need to do is add a delete button. Okay. And we'll say for We can do that on the display component. Okay, and we just need to get to the display HTML. And so now each one's going to also have a button for delete. And basically in this click, it's going to equal to-dos dot delete to do, passing in the to do. And that should do it. So I should be able to like click this button, delete brush your teeth. Nope, cannot properly delete to do of undefined. Okay, so let me just see where I made a mistake. So it says this dot to do's. Oh, I think it's to do service. Let me just double check display component. Where's all the properties? Yeah, to do service. So let's see it. And it works. There you go. Okay, I click that button. And there we did it. Okay. Again, a lot of that was set up. And that's what makes Angular take a little bit longer. But, you know, now, like, once I had everything kind of, all the pieces in place, getting things done kind of started moving along a lot faster. And that's kind of like, it's a slow ramp up. But then once you kind of get all ramped up, things do kind of move a little bit faster and smoother once you kind of got all the right dependencies injected and all the components connected to the right services. But there is a bit of wiring things up in Angular, as you can see. But yeah, so that's how you would have done that in Angular. So we have a to-do list. I can see my stuff. I can create a to-do. I can update a to-do. I can delete a to-do. I can do all the things. I can click on a to-do and say I want to edit it. So it works. Again, I didn't spend any time styling it. There's definitely things I would do a little bit differently. But I think at this point we've spent enough time on this. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy it. And the next one, we'll probably do it with like Vue or Svelte. Those will be the next two to get out of the way. And then we'll do Solid.js. And we'll just kind of keep going from there. I'll see you all later.